So it's all blocked,
Is it east related or what's the?
shown to the west,
But is it
No, I
the
mean,
protest?
what's the protest about?
this really.
Is-
That's right.
Oh, man, I mean, I really appreciate the protest here,
It's all
there,
Are we good?
but it is really disruptive. Yeah,
Yes,
it was
that's-
really
yeah.
interesting. In 2020, they had a protest at East Palo Alto.
See, are we on?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
Okay. Hi, everyone who might be watching. This is the November 16th meeting of the City Schools Liaison Committee. We are expecting to start about 5 minutes late, waiting for a quorum, and there's traffic and whatnot. So please sit tight and we will get started as soon as we can.
We muted now?
Yes.
Council is out, right? The committee.
Good morning. This is the regular meeting of the City Schools Liaison Committee on November 16th. We are still awaiting and expecting a quorum, so please sit tight and we will get started as soon as we have our third member here. Thank you. Let's open the meeting. Okay. Good morning. This is the regular meeting of the City Schools Liaison Committee on November 16th, 2023. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes,
Here.
School Board Member Dara,
Here.
Councilmember Byrd.
Here.
For the record, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Let us turn to our public comments for items not on the agenda.
We have one request to speak.
Hold on, thank you. Ken Horowitz, a longtime resident of Palo Alto. It's kind of interesting, and I wanted to talk about one topic, and it's also in today's post. It's about road safety. And I'm glad that the superintendent is here, as well as the city manager. Now that we moved the clocks back an hour, it's getting darker earlier and earlier. And I'm really concerned about our students and the bicyclists. Yeah, I do drive. I don't ride the bike. I drive a lot in the city, and the city is also very dark these days, mainly because of the trees that kind of cover the lights. So it's really dark, and I'm really worried about our students on the bicycles. They just don't follow rules very well. And I'm trying to figure out how this school district and the city, the police department, can work together to do better education for our students regarding bicyclists. Many of the bikes don't have lights in the back, hardly can see them. They don't have the reflector pedals, and they also wear dark clothes. So something bad is going to happen. I don't want that to happen. But as I drive around the city and I go home at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, there's so many bicyclists that are going through stop signs. So what can be done? What can be done? I don't know if there better education has to go on at the schools in terms of bicycle safety, but I hope there will be. And it has to come from the parents as well. Parents have to educate their kids that they can't be wearing dark clothes at night. You can't see them. You can't see them. So I wanted that one to be the major focus. And also, been thinking about this a little bit more. Maybe we should encourage our kids to walk more instead of using the bike. I think walking is good for the mental support, because when you walk, you talk to somebody. When you're on a bicycle, you're alone all the time. That's not good for kids. So maybe encouraging kids to walk more is not a bad idea. I know the city is pretty focused a lot on bicycling, but maybe the mental aspect is overshadowing a little bit of the biking. So I want to share that with you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Horowitz.
We have no more requests to speak.
Okay, let's move to approve the minutes of our prior meeting. May I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes,
Yes.
School Board Member Dara,
Yes.
Councilmember Byrd.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Terrific. Let's move now to the city and district reports. I think it is the city's turn to go first. The city manager is
rotated.
I try to rotate for fairness. Yes, so please.
Sure, happy to lead off here. Just a couple of items of note for general awareness. The city had a storm preparedness workshop last night at the Palo Alto Arts Center. And actually it was quite a nice display of primarily our public works staff, but really all departments represented, and in particular for preparedness in areas that may be subject to creek flooding. And so we went through a number of areas for residents to be prepared and also to review our communication strategies in the event of a flooding event. In addition, also just notably for the school district related to Duveneck Elementary, over the last year, our staff have installed additional catch basins on Dana at Allister, which should decrease the potential for flooding at Duveneck. So hopefully that will aid in this upcoming storm season. Also, let's see, just want to note a couple of items ongoing as planning efforts really led by our transportation staff, as Dr. Horowitz pointed out, related to bicycle and pedestrian safety. We have our comprehensive bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan ongoing, as well as what's referred to as the Safe Systems Approach, Safe Systems Action Plan. That our transportation staff is now just in the midst of gaining public input, and there will be additional public engagement opportunities as that input is organized and takes shape, and ultimately will be brought back for the city council. Then last item to note, really related to Coverly, just to perhaps state the obvious that we are getting organized on the city side with our ad hoc committee, and hope to be in touch with the school district shortly in order to kick off that next round of discussions. That's it for me at this point.
Councilmember Burt?
Not a lot to add. I wanted to actually follow on to both the city manager's comments and Dr. Horowitz. I don't know if everybody's aware, probably everybody here, but the last few years, really as a result of the COVID disruption, saw our first decline in bike riding to school in a couple of decades after we had steadily built up through the really comprehensive Safe Routes to School program. And I'm concerned on two fronts, and the Safe Routes to School is both biking and walking to school. And the efforts are ongoing, but we really had a disruption. And I think we need to kind of have a reconvening of what risks are we facing today as a result of reversal of that trend and other patterns, and what can we do? And one of the when Ken was talking about kind of how safely, particularly probably the teen riders are. Some of them didn't go through some of the training periods, and when they were in the lower grades during COVID, that was disrupted. And there's an interesting part too, which is what's the role of the city using enforcement to really not be able to directly impact the behavior, but actually it has this real kind of ripple effect on the kids if a kid gets pulled over for running or doing something outlandish. And I hate to use enforcement. It's kind of not my default thinking on how to contend with this, but there may be a greater role that we need right now. That not as the only step that we do, but one that we kind of look at how do we do spot enforcement. And it can even be with warnings, but pulling kids over, and it has that effect. And there's a whole lot of elements to this that the Safe Routes to School program has hit, from all the things that were talked about. But how do we really get back on track in the direction we were going? It's a challenge, but I think one maybe we need to talk about more.
Thank you. And I'll just add, following on to what the city manager said, the city's Coverly ad hoc is comprised of Councilmember Burt, Mayor Koo, and myself. And I know we're excited to be in this journey with the school district, and we have, I believe, one of the school district's two members here in board member Darup. And the second person is board chair Jennifer DiBrienza. So just wanted folks to know who is going to be leading those conversations on behalf of both parties. And that's it for me. So let's turn it over to the district for their updates, and then we'll get public comment on these items. Thank you.
All right, just a couple things. First of all, Ed, I have dates for you for the dates and times that might work for the ad hoc. So we did some checking on that to make sure that we were ready to go. And I think we're definitely ready to go. Just thinking about Mr. Horwith's comments. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about the lights on the back of bikes, and I see the same thing, adults and kids. I'm responsible for the kids. I'm just wondering if that's something we shouldn't just be giving out. You know, it's just not a big deal if that's an issue. It'd just be worth it to say if you need a light, just come pick up a light. So that's something I'd like to think about with us. And Mr. Drop's gonna have the actual board report. So one thing I will just foreshadow is that we've strengthened our partnership with Foothill considerably. And this district has had some failed attempts at creating really meaningful alternative pathways for students, especially secondary students. And I think that's coming to an end. I think we're gonna have a partnership with Foothill that could lead to a series of really viable alternative pathways for students that could be super exciting, that could be in the ballpark of 200 students as early as the fall. So working with Foothill has been really exciting. They're dedicating facility space just for our schools. We just made another visit up there to take that next step. But for students to be able to go up there, graduate with a high school diploma from one of our two high schools, in addition to taking a significant number of community college courses, either in the hopes of earning an AA for transferring, or to just really run in areas of emphasis, something that we hear our kids say that they want. And just along those lines, as I'm talking to our staff, so I'm going out to each staff meeting. Over time, I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, everything gets pushed down. Meaning that elementary school becomes a preparation zone for middle school. Instead of the time to enjoy elementary school, and middle school becomes the preparation for the rigors of high school, instead of just being that awkward middle place. High schools become squeeze everything you can out because you're going to college, and we're getting ready for college and college admissions and get college classes and race. I think we need to return our high schools to being high schools, and for the kids who are just dying to get into college, let's just create a college experience for them and just call it what it is. If you want the college experience, we will give you that college experience at the college, and we can help you do that. But we need to get out of the racing stuff, and I think our board has taken some good steps in that direction. But we're excited about where we're going with Foothill, and we'll have some upcoming presentations and recruiting efforts around that program. Something I'm excited about it. It's failed to get off the ground a few times, even 8 or 10 years ago when they're talking about doing something at the Coverly site. I think we've got a real natural on this one. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I want, rather than giving sort of a litany of things the board's done, just it's all been positive. But I just want to focus on that piece that Dr. Austin was talking about a little more, because for years we have talked about supporting students through alternative pathways or broad pathways to get away from both this pressure cooker and the other side of it, which is imposing a one size fits all onto everybody. And there are limits to what we can do within our normal curriculum because we're a public school. And so it's always the case where, at least as a board member and other board members I know feel this way too, which is our responsibility is to take taxpayer dollars and ensure that every student is meeting a baseline. That baseline has been college and career readiness. In places, we've raised what that baseline is for everyone above college and career readiness. But then again, the leftover resources, we have to put those towards the students who then are not meeting that baseline. And that can leave fewer resources, and resources is not just money, it's time, it's logistics, it's personnel, it's space, it's all this. But that can leave fewer resources for the type of individualization that students want. And so it's always a question of what's the difference between supporting all students and supporting every student. And so this partnership with Foothills Alternative School, this is something that really gets us away from supporting all students, which is a great baseline, and closer to supporting every student by just providing this other pathway for them to go off on. And it really is, as anyone can envision and imagine what it could be, what this could be, right? If a student wants to explore the type of work that leads to an AA, they can do that. If they want to explore the kind of work that might lead them to work in the trades, they can do that, or own a small business, or accelerate in math, right? That is an opportunity that they will have so many more opportunities than we could ever offer in those areas, because there are just going to be few students with few interests that then can be pursued. So I'm very excited about it. I've been excited for something like this for years, and we've steadily built up. And I know Dr. Austin has built a great team who's going to be working on this. So I'm really excited. And it made me think, as we were thinking about this, and I was listening to Dr. Austin at the board meeting, that it's also an opportunity this time as we transition to this area. This is just me talking, but it's an opportunity for us to highlight, PAUSD alumni in our community who have taken alternative paths, right? Who may not necessarily be Silicon Valley CEOs, which is of course fantastic that we have those, but of course that's something we all know. Our students grow up knowing that not only can you become a tech CEO, but maybe your dad is already one, or your mom is already one, or your uncle, and that is sort of an implicit expectation. So highlighting those folks in our community who are PUSD alumni who have different paths is so important. And I was reminded of this because I have seen, I think, all of my colleagues here at Backyard Brew over the last few months. It's a coffee shop downtown, and Dr. Austin has seen too. And I learned yesterday or a couple of days ago that the owner of Backyard Brew is a Pali grad who graduated a year after I graduated from Gunn. That's phenomenal. It's like, this is a PUSD alum who has taken a very alternative path, who is owning a thriving coffee shop that lots of community members go to. I mean, it's amazing. Those are the kinds of stories that, as we explore alternative paths, I think both our bodies should try and seek out to highlight, because it would mean a lot to our students who maybe don't know that this is a world of possibility for me. So I'm super excited. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this. So really happy.
First, is the Foothill campus the location that you would have? Okay. So first, I share all your thoughts on that. As a proud De Anza alum who grew up in this area and went to community college because economically, if you didn't have a scholarship, you went to community college and then transferred for most middle-class families in our area. But on top of that, Foothill De Anza has been one of the top community college districts in the country for a very long time. Incredible campuses and incredible programs. As Shanik noted, it's not only this opportunity for various paths, but it's also an opportunity for many students who don't want to be in the pressure cooker of our own high schools. And that's an irony and kind of a paradox that kids would go to college to have less pressure.
That is so wrong.
Yeah. But I did want to add one element to this that I've been attempting to pursue. It's still on the table, but not roaring forward, which is through VTA, greater transit access to Foothill College. I've been pushing a exploration of maybe a single bus route along the San Antonio corridor. I represent the 4 North County communities. That's the one road that goes through all 4 of those communities, all the way up to it becoming El Monte. And looking at for the district, looking at providing those students clear transit options for their rides, including even the integration with Marguerite and how that can be an effective transfer, and potentially politically in the efforts I'm trying to do to push VTA to prioritize a greater transit route in that corridor because of all the huge amounts of development, primarily housing. It's already been built there by Mountain View, that's being built in the coming years by Palo Alto and Los Altos on El Camino and San Antonio area. And the transitional housing projects, the 2 that are Mountain View and ours that are on the tail end of San Antonio. So I would welcome a collaboration because really getting VTA to prioritize something like that does require political forces unite.
I'm glad you brought that up. I might be confused if it's 2 buses necessary to get there, if it's 2 transfers, but the number 2's in there somewhere. But regardless, we were excited in the beginning because it was $6 per quarter for the pass to get up there. And we thought, this is great, let's buy everyone a pass. And we dug in just a little bit, and it's cumbersome right now. So if we had a direct route, we would purchase the passes for the students because it just makes sense. So we would be happy to be a part of that.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna actually save my comments for the next agenda item because it totally dovetails. So seeing no further comments from the committee, do we have public comment on this item?
We do not have any requests to speak.
Okay, thank you. Well, thanks everyone for these wonderful updates. And now we will move to item D, which is supporting youth mental health through greater career opportunities. This was something I asked to put on the agenda for the very reasons we've all been discussing. Not news to anyone here. Everything that's just been said really tees this up beautifully. I just want to really commend and applaud the district for strengthening the partnership with Foothill. It's so exciting. It's incredibly exciting to hear that it's happening and to hear how you frame your why behind that. I want to tell you a couple of things. When the most recent suicide cluster happened in our city, 2014-15, I was approached by 2 gun alums, Jacqueline Goen and Michal Pasternak, and they said, we want to help our community. These are grown women now, but they said, we want to help the students in Palo Alto appreciate that there are more paths from Palo Alto, which is how they put it. There are more paths from this marvelous place than kids realize. They were really responding to the sense of constraint, to the sense of pressure, to the sense of you are only worthwhile if you pursue one of these handful of careers that seem to be lauded and praised and seem to be what we're steering our kids toward. And their sense was if we could just open them to the reality that there are myriad paths, almost infinite paths out of this place, then maybe we would do better by our kids. And maybe we would, return a stronger baseline of mental health and wellness to the kids of Palo Alto. So that's one thing, a data point for me. Another is our fire chief and some of his team have let me know that there used to be a time when there was an explorers program when kids in our community could work with the fire department and come up to speed on what happens and what they do and the equipment and the response and the skills and that becomes a pathway perhaps to a career in firefighting and sort of informal kid level apprenticeship. And their eyes really lit up with delight as they described the strength of those programs And wouldn't it be great if, the city was able to restore the resources associated with that concept? And, so these are two unrelated yet very similar things about, helping kids in our city appreciate, it's not just this, narrow ladder from elementary to middle to high school to college in pursuit of one of, a limited set of pathways. So, then there's a third piece, which is the artist Molly Tuttle, who grew up here and is a Pali grad, and who just won a Grammy for Best Bluegrass Artist for her song Crooked Tree. Crooked Tree, the song written by a Palo Alto kid. Palo Alto, right, refers to our tree. And the lyrics speak to a crooked tree can't get processed by the mill. The trees processed by the mill are turned into toothpicks and $20 bills. I'm loosely quoting her lyrics here. The point being that the straight trees, the conforming trees that seem to be perfect, get sent down to the mill and turned into products of consumption, part of sort of the capitalist plan. But a crooked tree, a tree that differentiates, a tree that dares to be different, becomes itself. And so it's this extraordinarily beautiful metaphor. So I have been noodling.
You just wrote my Friday message for me.
Okay.
You're gonna be reading a masterpiece.
Okay, so so what I thought we could discuss is with an eye toward opening our kids and their parents and our community broadly to the fact that humans thrive doing all sorts of jobs, having all sorts of careers, from the guy who's graduated from Pali and now runs this amazing coffee shop, Backyard Brew, to Molly Tuttle, to people who are doing all sorts of things, that maybe we could do a lovely expo on this. Maybe we could do a day-long conference. Maybe it's just a half-day conference. We pick a time with adequate notice. We put together a couple inspiring keynotes or performances, a few key panels, a panel on the arts, a panel on government and nonprofit opportunities, a panel on the trades. And that's the piece I've left out here. Although perhaps embedded in the firefighting message. Like, our kids don't know that the trades are an incredibly rewarding set of pursuits with great salaries and benefits, security, and a sense of I'm doing work that is meaningful and matters. So imagine a number of panels where you can hear from people who've had, illuminating, exciting careers they're proud of in these various industries. Probably panelists young enough that the kids don't feel like, it's just a bunch of old people talking about the 20th century, but people in their 20s and 30s who have pursued these routes. I'm not saying we shouldn't have older people, but it needs to be relatable enough to the young. And then an expo, a fair where people are invited to come and set up a table and say, here's what we do, here's what it's about. Here's what you want to think about, taking courses in high school if you're interested in, government work, in healthcare, in firefighting, in the arts, in whatever. And so there's a milling about, there's a high energy nature to it, with some bits of real inspiring storytelling from the front of the room, here and there. I think this is something we could easily pull off. I think carefully marketing to parents why this is not about dumbing down, lessening opportunities, but instead expanding the world of opportunity. A lot of our parents don't necessarily realize they themselves are caught up in the trap of fear that, we're only worthwhile if, we're doing this narrow set of things. So I imagine at the end of it, if we do it well, that the community will feel this sort of exhale and a bit of relief and a bit of excitement, like, wow, I had no idea. This is interesting. What did you say? What is the salary for that? The practical stuff, but also the inspiring stuff. So I just wanted to throw that idea out and see how it lands with y'all. Thanks.
I love it. I also think it's sort of taking the idea of a job fair and elevating it to a celebration of community. And if it is, if this is something that is done not just by PAUSD on a PAUSD campus, right, as a job fair for students, but it's something done jointly. And so there's a draw there, not just for students, but also for parents, but also for community members whose kids don't go to KUSD, of which there are many. To really see the potential for, in this area, in the heart of Silicon Valley, the vast diversity of possibilities. I think it would go down very, very well for everybody. I mean, I think it would be a really great moment and a really important moment for us, yeah.
I also really support it. I have to admit, I was remiss in not having read the lyrics of Molly Tuttle's hit, and that's really fascinating. Excuse me. And I want to expand on one of the points that you made, Julie, which is that the skilled construction trades basically are not only high-paying, incredibly in-demand career paths. It goes further. I've been pitching to a number of agencies that our greatest challenges as a region are being severely limited by the limitation on skilled trade workers, high-paying jobs. And at the same time, so many young people in our region, more from modest, modest income communities, continue to be squeezed out while they don't realize that these paths are there for them. So electrification, this incredible transformation that's going to occur in our state and our nation over the coming couple of decades, we as a city have been constrained in the pace that we can go based upon limitations on not only the professional engineers and high voltage power supply engineers, but the high voltage line workers, and then all the way down into electricians and the actually doing the transformations of buildings. In housing are the one knob that can be turned in, or one of the two knobs that can be turned in terms of housing, is the labor supply. And our regional costs of housing are based upon not only the zoning, which tends to get all the focus, but it's the land value, and frankly, upzoning increases the land value. And so that's a real dilemma, but material and labor costs and supply shortages. And then in transportation, we just, for instance, have seen the BART tunnel to San Jose go up another 25% or $2.5 billion. And a big part of that is the labor shortage. So it also is a great need for our region, not only a great opportunity for these kids. And I will say that as our two kids have pursued liberal arts paths and are doing real well in them, as the kids of two parents who were liberal arts majors who went into tech. And so there's just a whole bunch of different ways paths that can go. So thanks for bringing that up. I will say I do recall the Explorer Scout troops. Now, my recollection vaguely is that there was a collaboration with our public safety departments, and there's, I think, police and fire, but also so scouting is a private nonprofit, and so I think we have to revisit and see where the Explorer posts are. One was at literally the Sea Scout base, which is now the Environmental Volunteers headquarters down at the Bayland, but that's worth exploring as well, and be intrigued in that. And I think we have to reach out to the Scout Council, which is headquartered at Lucy Stern.
Any further comments? Public comment on this item?
We have no request to speak.
Okay, might I suggest as next steps, I don't want to at all convey that I think we are the first people to have this idea. I know that the people in our school district who are working in guidance counseling and in counseling more broadly, people who focus on career paths, they are constantly thinking about this. So there's tremendous expertise in the school district about, how one should narrate these kinds of things to kids. I imagine there's also a lot of folks in the city staff who have an interest in thinking about how to draw that through line from being a kid to being in the career they have. So might I ask the superintendent and the city manager, once we perhaps get a set of notes about what we've sort of put out here, to go to your folks and sort of put out the word that the city and the school district are thinking of collaborating on a conference or let's call it a conference for now.
Festival.
A festival, yeah, but, right. Yes, it should have that energy to it. I think this is something we could pull off with the right people motivated. I think we could do it this spring. I think there's time to get in front of a spring thing, finding the right dates, just, making sure there's no city or school conflict. But it'd be nice to pull together like a small nimble team that's gonna really work on this. I will delightedly participate in this. Anyone else on the committee who wants to, please signal that. But we do want folks from the district and city staff as well, maybe a couple, three. So does that feel actionable?
Sounds good.
Yeah? Okay, all right, how exciting. I'm still on, okay, well, that's it for our agenda, so anybody have an item they'd like to put out there for future topics? I should ask that, I know Councilmember Burt and Board Member Collins were forming an unofficial committee to follow up on these linkages, the ways in which our relationship could emulate that of Beverly Hills. Do you want to let us know do you have a plan?
We're scheduled to meet in the next couple of weeks. We haven't done it yet. But I did want to follow up to our earlier discussion on safe routes to school. We have an annual report. When are we?
It's usually spring.
Spring. And I wonder. So, and that's really an update report, but the discussion we had today is really about, are there ways that we need to look at how we can do anything to add dimensions or reinvigorate or help support it more fully. So I don't know whether we might want to have that discussion maybe separately from the annual report.
I would note, again, since we have two planning efforts ongoing, that there will be opportunities for those to converge. I think it is really part and parcel of the same issue in terms of bicycle and pedestrian traffic safety. As it happens, the rail committee will be discussing the plans on December 19th. And the council should receive an update soon after the first of the year. So there are some upcoming venues for that discussion to be advanced.
Well, and that's the very important parts of the physical part of it. And I fully support that. But I think what we're talking about here more is how do we address the behavioral? And the physical support to making biking and walking safe is really very foundational. But the other dimension is, are there ways that we can really in any way address the behavioral issues with safe routes?
So in fact, tonight, you will receive an update on the safe systems planning effort. And it is absolutely inclusive of behavioral, really shared responsibility of users and the physical space and drivers as examples, all party to safety in our environment. So I would suggest we distribute that report to the members of this committee. The council will definitely receive it, but certainly for the school district representatives as well. Perhaps just to lay a foundation for your next conversation.
So should we add a discussion of that item to our December 14th meeting? Our meeting has been pulled up a week because our ordinary time would be too close to, would be during the closure. So does that sound right?
I think that
That
would
we
be
could put-
fine unless you have something that competes in terms of.
Well, we have an update from Pat and Todd on whatever they've brought forth about the Beverly Hills model. And that could be a significant agenda item. So why don't we maybe we add it to the agenda as an item that we'll get to if we have time. If not, we'll kick it to January. My concern there is we will be reconstituted as a committee. And as the newbie on the team here, I'm not familiar with how that feels when you've been a part of something, a set of conversations. We've come a distance as a committee this year in a good sense, I think. And I'm sad at the thought of, in January, none of us might be here talking about these things, or maybe a handful of us will. And it'd be sad to lose what feels like, a bit of coalescence and momentum. Did you want to say something, Sean?
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly how it works in the city's end, although I think it's similar, but on our end, we generally rotate it so that at least one member stays on. So there's continuity. And if we go by that, pattern, then it's likely that I would stay on. Having been only on for 1 year, Todd was on for 2. And so I mean, that might be good.
Well, and I would add that if there was a really concrete reason for even greater continuity on the committee, if we begin to kind of grapple with one or more of these major issues that we don't want to see disrupted, we could explore whether we even have greater continuity there. Yeah.
Good. I like the sound of that. Okay. All right. Any further comments about future agenda items? Okay, then the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, Ken. I'm sorry I referred to you as Horowitz, Dr. Horowitz.
19th or whatever it is, 14th.